So we have a really good program coming up really soon. So let's get excited. And first off, I'm going to introduce to you all the Bowie State cheerleaders. They're going to come out here and give us pumped up. Come on, y'all. Give them a clap for the Bowie State cheerleaders. So when I say, hey, 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 Bowie, you guys respond with the same thing. All right, let's practice real quick. So, hey, 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 Bowie. Hey, 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 Bowie. Hey, 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 Bowie. Thank you, y'all. Okay, so now our next guest I would like to introduce is Brent Swinton. He's the Vice President for Institutional Advancement. So let's give him a warm Bowie welcome.
Bowie State University. Bowie State, where you at? Again, my name is Brent Swinton, and it is my pleasure to introduce this wonderful event to you all on behalf of our 10th president, Dr. Aminta H. Bro, the administration, our faculty, our staff, and our students. I want to welcome our guests to Bowie State University, and I want to welcome our students to this wonderful panel. You all are going to have a great time and hear a lot of very, very life-impacting information. And for our panelists, welcome to Bowie State University, and the Department of Institutional Advancement and Alumni Engagement have also left you all these wonderful gifts just to let you know that when you come to Maryland's first HBCU, you are coming to Maryland's best HBCU. So everyone, let's give it up for the panel. Enjoy yourselves, and thank you once again.
You guys sound excited. Didn't the cheerleaders do a great job? You guys want me to dance? No, somebody here said no. Please do not do that. Please do not do that. Hey, well, listen, Dewey Norwood with Wells Fargo, really excited to be on with you all here for today. And I think we've really got an amazing discussion, right? We're talking today with a group of individuals that have either made it to where they want to be financially or individuals that are in the process of getting there. And so my hope is that you all will take copious notes on everything that we share, and we'll be able to have a real dialogue. We're going to have opportunities for Q&A as well during a portion of today's meeting. And we also have a bunch of partners that couldn't be here with us in Bowie, Maryland, but are joining us online. So can we, in a minute, just say hello to the online audience? Just maybe hello online audience. Can you guys, all right, on the count of three, we'll say hello online audience. All right, 1, 2, 3. All right, that was okay, but they're online, so it may have to be a little bit louder. So one more time, hello online audience in 3, 2. All right, very good, very good. Well, listen, we're going to take a couple of minutes and then we're going to bring on the additional stars of the broadcast today. Just want to take a moment and talk a little bit about our institution. So you'll see here on the slides that are coming up, just some details about Wells Fargo, some things that I would want you all to know. $1.9 trillion in assets. Essentially, 1 in 3 households here in the U.S. is going to have a banking relationship in some way, shape, or form with our institution. And so pretty important statistics there. And of course, 250,000+ colleagues that work for our institution from a global perspective. And so we have a lot of those wonderful volunteers that are here helping us out with today's discussion. So pretty cool things there. I always love to spend a little bit of time talking about some in the news kinds of items. And Phil, I think we've got 2 of these that we'll bring up. The first one is going to spotlight, our firm's commitment around advancing racial equity in home ownership. I would encourage everyone, please just scan the QR code that you see on the screen, or go ahead and jump out to this important article. And it actually speaks to some significant contributions and commitments that the firm has made, $210 million to help minority families. And so I would encourage everyone to take a look at that to be able to learn more. As we continue on, I certainly want to spotlight some of the work that our institution is doing in support of students. And I'm happy to report in the last 10 years, our firm has provided over $97 million, so almost $100 million of financial support to help students through our programming. So events like these, as well as, yeah, give it up for Wells Fargo. That's a good, strong number. So events like these, and certainly scholarships that we're providing as well, come in very, very handy in those given areas. And so, all right, listen, I'm going to bring on, I think now, another trusted partner of ours. You know, you've heard from me, so we're now going to bring on Betsy Burton-Strump, who's going to speak on behalf of TMCF. So Betsy, please take it away.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for being here. I'm not going to ask you to cheer louder because, you know, I don't know that it worked when Dewey did it. Come on, y'all. Okay, thank you. Anyways, so I'm going to talk to you a little bit about Thurgood Marshall College Fund. We're going to work on the screen so that you'll see some QR codes. But Thurgood Marshall College Fund has been around since 1987. I know everybody on the Zoom is raising their hand, but how many folks in here are familiar with Thurgood Marshall College Fund? That's amazing. So Thurgood Marshall College Fund, as I said, has been around for 35 years. It's a big anniversary for us, and we provide scholarships, internship opportunities for networking, leadership development, and entree into good jobs. And it sounds like everybody in here is taking advantage of that, and we couldn't be happier about it. So please, every opportunity you have, Bowie State students, anybody that attends an HBCU, go to tmcf.org and check out all of these opportunities. So Thurgood Marshall College Fund, our mission is ensuring student success by promoting educational excellence and preparing the next generation, which is everybody here and everybody on the Zoom, the next generation of workforce talent through leadership development. So we're really delighted to partner with our friends at Wells Fargo. We've been partners for more than 20 years, and we're happy to be here at Bowie State, a great member school. So thanks for having us. I'm going to turn it over to Dewey, who's going to continue talking about other things.
All right, give it up for Betsy, y'all. She flew from Hawaii to be here with y'all today. Y'all can do better than that. She's like, dude, I didn't come from Hawaii. So listen, we are going to get an opportunity to spotlight our friends at Our Money Matters a little bit later on in today's broadcast. But I do want to, as we're closing out things and quickly handing the reins over to Monica for our great panel, want everyone to take a look at our wonderful HBCU Legends collection. For our folks that are here in the audience, did you all see the wonderful Wells Fargo cards that we had on the table as you were getting registered in? Did you guys notice we have one for, of course, Bowie State? Pretty cool, pretty cool. We love that. We actually have 10 of the 12 CIAA schools in our initial class of these wonderful debit cards. And so for the folks that are online, again, you can take a look at the great article. And Phil, I think we've also got a slide here that gives a visual picture here of all of the schools. And so we've got Bowie State, of course, Johnson C. Smith on there, Elizabeth City, my wife's alma mater. We love you, Amanda. Lincoln Lions, Livingstone as well. We got St. Aug's, we got Shaw, Virginia State and Virginia Union, Winston-Salem State, Clark Atlanta. We have also brand marks for the CIAA and also for UNCF. And of course, last but not least, we have to have a brand mark for our wonderful friends at TMCF. So you can actually jump out to the card design studio and you can get access to those wonderful cards. Last item before we hand it over to our friends. From a run-of-program perspective, we've talked a little bit about our firm. You've heard some about Wells Fargo. Happy to report to you, we have over 350 registrants for today's session. So we have lots of folks. That's a good number, really good number for us. I know we have a lot of folks that are joining online and obviously you in our audience here. Just special thanks to the entire staff and team of Bowie State for inviting us out. This is our first live webinar in about 3 years. And so really excited to be able to do that with you all here and the great team at Bowie State. Some reminders, Q&A, please be prepared for our audience Q&A. You see the microphones that are here. We've got great partners there. We'll be reminding you all when the right time comes to get connected in there. And again, I think we're going to jump into what I think is going to be a very, very good discussion. Last but not least, don't forget, get social with us today. Any folks on any Instagram? Who's Instagram in the house? Okay. TikTok? We got that. A lot of hands went down. All right. Facebook? All right. There's a couple of Facebook folks. All right. LinkedIn? Business side? Right on. All right. So I need you all sharing using the hashtag TMCF and also the hashtag WFC Beyond College. So please go ahead and utilize those hashtags. If you hear something today from one of the panelists or something jumps out for you, go ahead and throw it online. And it's not too late to invite your friends to come over and participate as well. All right, we've covered off on the items that I need to. I'm really excited now to be handing the microphone over to a trusted partner and a great friend in Monica Mitchell. She is going to facilitate what I think is going to be a really, really powerful conversation. You know, boasts 25 plus years of experience from an industry perspective. She is true blue Baltimore. Any Baltimore love in the house? You see it? Listen, I'm trying to hype them up. Come on. If you're from Baltimore, make some noise in here. All right, thanks. See, that's what I would expect. That's what I would expect from Baltimore crew. So with that said, I'm going to hand the reins on to Monica. Thanks a million. We'll be back to see you guys later on.
Thank you, Dewey.
Yes, ma'am.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Monica Mitchell with Wells Fargo, and I'm so pleased that you've joined us here today. So I have the pleasure of moderating an incredible panel discussion, What Millionaires Wish They Knew When They Were in College. I think for me, one of the most transformational experiences is when I was in college, I had an opportunity to work in collections. And for me, that taught me some of the things that I wanted to avoid when managing my finances. And so, you know, thinking about the flip side of that, what if young people are provided with information on what to do, how to navigate proactively your finances to build assets, to build wealth, not only for yourselves, but for your family, your community, and hopefully to become donors to your HBCUs and colleges and universities later on as well. And so how do we begin to build wealth? And so what better way to figure that out than to ask folks who have already achieved a level of financial success? And so I have the privilege of moderating an incredible panel discussion today. And I'd like to take the time to have the panelists introduce themselves. First, I'd like to start off with Danita Johnson.
Hi, good afternoon, everybody. My name is Danita Johnson. I'm the president of business operations for DC United, the soccer club in Washington, DC. Thank you. I've spent the last 16 years working in sports. Previous to my term here in DC, I served as the president and COO for the LA Sparks. I've worked in the NBA, WNBA, and G League all across the US. So now I'm back in DC.
And I think you're being humble. You were the first woman president of operations for, I don't want to get it wrong, but you're being humble.
Second woman, first African-American.
Awesome. Congratulations. Next, I'd like to introduce Terrence Leonard, who obviously has some, we have a panelist and that's in his Washington Commanders colors. We have a panelist who was stuck in traffic. Thank you so much, Tim. I'm so glad you were able to get here safely. Next, let's move over to Terrence Leonard to introduce himself.
Yeah, thank you. Hi, my name is Terrence Leonard. I'm co-founder and VP of engineering of TreeTrunk.io, which is an NFT startup to help artists generate royalty streams. I've had the honor and privilege to be a software engineer in Silicon Valley for numerous amount of years, and have had a stint at Amazon with AWS. Thank you.
Incredible. And I think you're being a little humble too. I think you've had a few articles written about you, huh? Who's written articles about you?
Yeah, so you can check out my articles in New York Post, Market Watch, Newsweek, and then maybe Black Enterprise also has one as well. So
I think I found you in a Forbes article too.
Yeah. Not yet, but hopefully soon.
Great, thank you. Next we have Gabriel Adams.
Good afternoon, everyone. Gabriel Adams. I'm native of Baltimore, alumnus of Bowie State University. Currently, I serve as a wealth manager for Truist Investment Services. I've been in the industry for over 20 years now.
Thank you so much. And we have Tim Hightower. Welcome, Tim.
Thank you, thank you. Good afternoon, or is it evening yet? It's still afternoon. My name is Tim Hightower, and NFL veteran, 10-year NFL veteran. Currently serve as the Director of Alumni Relations for the Commanders. Now, any Commanders fans? Yes, no? Okay, I know the name. We got to get used to the name. I know. But then also a real estate investor on the side as well.
Incredible, wonderful. Well, thank you all for joining today. I want to make sure that we get right into the panel discussion. We've got lots of questions for this panel, and then I know lots of questions for the audience as well. And so I'll start off by asking you, and we can just, whoever the spirit moves first to answer is welcome to do so. But what financial barriers did you experience in college and early career, and how did you overcome them? And don't make me call on y'all. Come on now. Go ahead, Danita.
I think the biggest financial barrier was not having a nest egg. So going into college, not having additional funds, being like, this is where my starting point is, not necessarily having, a family with a lot of money and like having just even a cushion. Obviously my parents were there, but just like that extra cushion of security was probably one of the biggest barriers. So then from that point, your starting point, right? Where do you start from? How do you start to find your own individual wealth? For me, it was becoming an RA and working in the intramural department and finding other ways to make income, doing summer programs like Upward Bound, where I stayed on campus for the summer and helped like find ways to make extra income through that by mentoring young high school students. So it was about being savvy about ways to start to create income and reduce expenses for me. And so obviously as an RA, reducing room and board. So just being strategic and thinking about how do I start building that even in the college sense, and whether it's through your refund check and you stash 10% somewhere because you don't have to pay it back later anyway. Whatever it takes, just being thoughtful in that approach and how I went about the things I was doing from a day to day. And I'm still learning and making mistakes at the same time.
I love that answer, and thinking about the resources that you did have at hand, becoming an RA, like you said, reducing that room and board. You even mentioned Outward Bound and being able to stay on campus during the summertime as well, which I think housing is a tremendous expense, can sometimes double the cost of tuition. That's great. Anybody else?
When you talk about the barriers, I remember just, and this was not a unique experience for me, some of my fellow teammates and colleagues, just the pressure, right? You experience that pressure. A lot of us were first generation in a lot of things that we do. And while we have the opportunity to pursue, whether it's for me, the next level of professional football or college, you still understand what's happening at home, right? The conflict that's happening at home. I remember, financial aid. My mother knew when that financial aid came. I would get a phone call about a week prior to find out. And I felt that responsibility because I knew the challenges that were back home. And while other kids on campus, other students are living a quote unquote college life, right? Where they're focusing on their academics, I'm thinking about how can I support my family back home, right? And so that was one of the barriers right there, where you're starting off with that framework of this added pressure of, I have to perform on the field, I have to perform in the classroom, but I also have to provide at a young age with any additional resources that come my way. And so I just remember that being a big obstacle and something that I had a ton of conversations with my teammates about and just former college classmates, those who could relate.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, to piggyback off what Danita said, not having any true nest egg or support system, which caused me to really have to work the entire time I was in college. So I was a full-time student, and I can basically say I was almost a full-time employee the entire time that I was in school, and trying to navigate that and also keep up my studies and make sure that my grades were going to be worthwhile when I actually did graduate. But at the same time, think about the fact that when I do graduate, I don't just want to go back to Baltimore and be looking for a job. So trying to create some habits that I didn't have prior to coming to school, learning those habits now and kind of cementing those habits so that when you graduate, you're not trying to learn them when you graduate.
That's a great point. Did you want to?
Yeah, I'll throw it. So I went to the Naval Academy for college. So I didn't have the typical college career. So a lot of my experience, I'll talk about my early career. Starting off as a naval officer, when you go to jobs, it's your order to go there. So there is no negotiation. There is no, you just show up and you're doing the job. So one of my earlier barriers was learning how to negotiate and not knowing that you can negotiate early and often. And so, you know, I was so grateful for any offer that came my way. And I was like, oh, this is great. Yeah, I'll take whatever you can give me, but not being able to leverage the fact that maybe I did really well in the interview and that I can negotiate for a higher salary so I can start at a higher point so that when it comes around to promotions and things like that, I know I can get even higher and not just back on level with everybody of my coworkers and peers around me. So I would say negotiation.
So how did you figure out that negotiation? Did somebody tell you? Did somebody drop that jewel of wisdom?
So I looked to my peers and to my mentors. And really for me, it was validation of, no, like you're doing the job well and being recognized. And so once I knew like, okay, yeah, I'm competent and getting over imposter syndrome and things like that, then I was able to kind of come in and I would just start high and then just work my way back down. So it was definitely a self-learning process for sure, but leaning on mentors, talking with coworkers, talking with peers is definitely how I learned to negotiate early on.
Great, thank you. Well, Gabriel, you mentioned that you had to start teaching yourself better habits if you wanted a better outcome. So how did you start to balance saving money and paying off debt through and after college?
I mean, a lot of times it was just life smacking you in the face and you had to pretty much choose one or the other. But what I would say is, I started off right out of college living beyond my means. One of the first mistakes I made was buying a car. I graduated in 2000. I bought a 99 Chevy Tahoe right before I graduated school. I was working for Home Depot and I was working for Washington Metro Area Transit Authority as a mechanic. And I was making about $75,000 a year between both jobs. So I really thought I had done something because I hadn't graduated yet. I was still working. And I bought this 99 Tahoe. And of course, after you graduate, some things change. You might find that you become tired of working two jobs. So then your income changes. And then you find out, well, you may have extended yourself well above where where you should be. But I remember when I was working on the train for WMATA, there was a gentleman there who told me, to buy a house first. And I bought that car first. So it took me a few years to recover from that. I could go into a lot of more details of what happened, but I had the ability to buy that house out of college, which many of you can create that ability too, but you have to save now. You have to realize that it's not about waiting till you get a big lump sum of money or you get a huge salary. You guys, I'm sure, still get refund checks now, right? So you can save, as you are progressing through school, as well as any job that you're doing now or intern that's maybe paying you, you can always start to set aside money for the future. You got to get rid of that retail therapy mindset that a lot of people have when they're having a bad day. They just want to go out and buy something. So you kind of got to change that mentality of rewarding yourself, but not necessarily putting it out into the, just consuming things.
Thank you for that. So I don't think that you were the only one that fell into the trap of overspending or making some bad early financial decisions. I know back when I was in college, credit card companies would set up tables on college campuses. And fortunately now I don't think that happens, but you sign up for a credit card and they give you a little stuffed animal or a t-shirt and you're kind of, signing up for the potential of thousands of dollars in debt. And you really have no concept of what you're signing up for. And I know I did that like right after my 18th birthday, and down the street was the mall, right? So I'm like, I got this card I can whip out and just not even take it into account that, oh, you have to pay this back. Fortunately, my mother didn't believe in the privacy of mail. So when that first statement came from the credit card company, I got the call, Monica, what's this? And we got to set up a payment plan to pay this off. So I didn't get too far down track. But you're right, that information often doesn't come until we've made mistakes. And oftentimes, especially with credit, you make a mistake, it could be something that stays on your credit report for 7 to 10 years. And now that ability to buy a house when you have a clean slate is no longer there, or you put barriers in the way. And so you started down the conversation of home ownership. I just want to ask, for the rest of the panel, how has, home ownership or other ways of building assets? Danita, you mentioned setting aside parts of your refund check. Gabriel, you mentioned the same. Can you talk a little bit about the ways that you started doing that?
Yeah, so I am very probably type A about my funds. So I have like little tricks of the trade, but it was about reading. So I started reading books. I didn't know, my family didn't teach me all these things. So most of the stuff I have learned about like how I handle my finances was over time. So reading books, watching stuff online, trying to figure out what was the best way to go about things. A lot of my white counterparts that I worked with told me things that my parents had never told me. Like one of my friends used to pay her rent on her credit card every month to get points for flying. And I was like, that's brilliant. Like, how did I not think of that, right? Just like little things like that. If you don't do it, do it. But like little things like that I just didn't think about because I was automatically paying off and finding a way to reward myself back in different ways. But I went down to, I used to only carry cash for a while. I had no credit cards. So I only carried cash or what was in my bank account. And that's how I operated for the first 5 to 10 years of me moving away from home post-college. So when I finished college, I had no credit cards. Only thing I had was the money in my bank account, and that's what I lived off of. The type of work I did was sales, so you got off commission. So I had to really work for what I earned, and I had to watch what I spent. And so every time I would get paid, I keep a ledger still to this day, and I zero out every bit of my money. So I will write when I get paid, and I write my 4 walls, which are my home. So everything in my house that I need to pay for. Then underneath that, if I want to buy clothes, because I always do, I put a little bit for clothes. I put a little bit for going out to dinner and stuff. I won't even say a little bit anymore, but I do it. Those are the things I enjoy, right? So I bring that and I balance it all out. And the best thing I ever did for myself was understanding where my money went. So when I started doing that, I would zero out down to the last penny of what was in my paycheck, of what was in savings, what I was keeping, what I wasn't. And that's how I ran my books. When I was about 24, 25, I started doing that. And I do that to this day. And so I always know where my money is. And I think one of the things that's helped me is knowing where my money is. Because when we spend frivolously and don't think about where it's going, you wake up and be like, where did that $200 to $300 go that quick, right? So one of the best things I've learned is being in control of that and realizing that I'm in control of my money, the world is not. And so I would take envelopes and I would just use cash and write out what I did. But those were things that really helped me in the beginning, just to understand and get into a practice of thinking about my money in a different way.
Thank you for that. Anybody else want to add to that?
That's awesome. I mean, I think about my first year, 2008. In college and high school, I'm a firm believer how you do anything is how you do everything, right? Like your habits, they don't change when you get more resources. They don't, it just gives you an opportunity to manifest more of who you are. And that's not just a quote. Like I live that and I believe that. And in high school and college, I thought, when I get to the NFL, I'm going to make a bunch of money, a ton of money, and then I would be fine. I didn't think about, I had no concept of cash flow and understanding What did I do with the resources now? Where was that money going? I had to give an account for that money. And so I remember after my first season, I'm sitting down and you go from living in a college dorm, trying to make sure I have enough swipes on my card, right? To, enough meal swipes, to next thing you know, you get the signing bonus, and then you're being paid in weekly increments. You get your whole entire salary over the course of 17 weeks, right? And so you go from not making any money to making a ton of money in your first year. And money was just going out, right? I didn't go buy a fancy car, right? I bought a 2-year-old car. I said, okay, I won't go too big. I'll try to live modest for whatever that means. I didn't really have a definition of what that meant, right? But I was not keeping up with what went out. Giving $1,000 here, giving this person $2,000 here, this person asking for money. Well, I have it in my account, so I'm just doing it. And I sat down with an accountant at the end of my first year, and he's showing me $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 sometimes going out in a month. And I'm thinking, there's no way. I didn't spend that much money. I had no clue how much it took for me just to wake up and live a day, a week, a month. I didn't even know what the value of what that was. And this is the best thing that he did. He said, look at this number. Now follow this line and you tell me where it runs out. And I'm like, well, I don't understand what you mean. Like I have money. And he said, no. For you to continue this pattern, these behaviors, either this runs out or you're going to make this kind of money forever. So one of the two things need to happen, right? But it's that concept of not thinking, I'll be fine. Right now I only make $500, so it doesn't matter. When I make 50,000 or when I make 100,000, but no, it's literally that disciplining myself and knowing where is our resources going. Because now, once you've developed that habit, you're going to do the same thing when you get more as what you did with what you have right now. And I truly believe that.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, definitely. I would definitely say one of my problems earlier on was when I would get promotions and get raises, just thinking, oh, like now I got a little bit of extra money in my pocket. Yeah, now I got, no, but like staying disciplined and living off of your previous salary or living off of an earlier salary and staying in that, even if it's just 6 months, a year, however much, and then kind of adjusting your expectations there is gonna put you miles ahead, because otherwise you'll just creep up into each and every, like you were saying, the habits that you've built in a previous salary is they're going to carry on into, so you're not going to see the extra money that you've just made. So I would say yes, remaining disciplined and your raises is very important.
Thank you. So I just want to pause and give a moment to the fact that every single one of our panelists has mentioned habits, whether it's habits of mind or discipline. And we have a panel of folks who have achieved financial success. And so for everybody in the audience, for everybody watching live stream, that the philosophy of, what you do the least of is what you're gonna always do. And so thinking about and assessing and being reflective of our habits, our money habits, our spending, the psychology behind it. Well, if I am going out and spending money, why am I doing this? Is this retail therapy? Am I trying to make myself feel better because I had a bad day, because I had a breakup, because somebody got on my nerves, because somebody cut me off in traffic? Am I making myself feel better those ways? And is that ultimately working towards my goal? But that idea of habits coming from folks who have achieved financial success, I think that's important. And I don't want to overlook that. Let me ask you about your experience with credit cards, debit cards, student loan debt. Danita, you mentioned that you intentionally stayed away from credit cards as a way to start to build your wealth and assets and build your habits. How did you guys navigate that? Unless you were, and you also mentioned not having, not sort of being a trust fund baby and going to school with a nest egg. How do you all navigate managing that?
Well, I can talk to how I was introduced to what credit was.
Okay.
In a very embarrassing way. I'm a storyteller. I'm an open book. I love stories. I believe we learn from storytelling and through other stories. And so again, I get drafted and I wanted a Lexus. I wanted a Lexus. I knew for a long time. I was a big Jay-Z fan. He talked about Lexuses growing up. And so I was going to get me a Lexus, but I wasn't going to buy one brand new. That's what they told me. Don't buy a brand new. You lose it. You know, it's a depreciating asset. It's not an asset. It's a depreciating. It depreciates over time, right? And so I walk in. I have a signing bonus, $200,000, $225,000 signing bonus. So I'm thinking I have plenty of money in my account to go pick out a car of choice. And I sit down, absolutely no concept of what I'm doing. I sit down, go get a 2-year-old car, and I'm sitting there just ready to sign the paperwork and walk out. I'll put half down. I don't know where I got that concept from. I didn't do the reading and the research.
See my eyes get big?
It shocks you. I know. It gets worse, trust me. But I'm sharing this stuff like that because I was very embarrassed after looking back and as I think back about it. But when you know better, you do better. And a lot of times we never had anyone to walk us through these encounters as we have them all for the first time. You're encountering a lot of things for the first time. And so first of all, giving ourselves some grace as we navigate, financial matters. And so the person comes back and they say, Mr. Hightower, you weren't approved for this loan. And I'm thinking, what do you mean I'm not approved? I have money. Do you want me to pull up a statement? At this point, I'm getting upset now, right? And I just didn't understand. And then from there, it was the embarrassment because we were speaking 2 different languages and I had no understanding of what they meant. So I didn't know if I was more frustrated that I wasn't approved or that I didn't understand why, right? And I still get upset and cringe. I walked out that dealership signing an 18% car note and loan. 18%. No concept. You guys knew a lot more than I did at 21 years old, right? And I say this with all the sincerity, but what happened, and I love my mother, I love my family. My mother took out a credit card in my name with the intentions of paying it off, building her kids' credit. It just didn't quite happen that way. So we were starting off behind the 8 ball, we were starting off in the deficit of credit on top of never accumulating anything. It was negative. There wasn't anything positive that was building. And so that was my first kind of encounter with credit. And it was an embarrassing moment, but I never had an understanding and a concept of the importance of, yes, it's one thing to have money, but that credit will follow you. And when you're going to make purchases, it's a reflection of your habits, a reflection of your ability, your word, all these types of things. So that was my first encounter with credit.
So how did you overcome that? I assume that, you figured out a way to get out eventually from an 18% car loan, I hope.
I did. Okay. I did. Quickly. Let me not say quickly. I drove it around for a year before anyone told me and put some sense into me to let me know that was a terrible mistake. But it was over time. Yeah. These things don't happen over time. It was get one credit card, start paying off some of your bills, right? So it was a lot of those small things that we're talking about. Just first of all, understanding what it was. I didn't even know what my credit score was, nor did I know what was on it, the history, because I thought I never even had a credit card. So how do I have negative or bad credit, right? So it was just small things that, hey, this can build over time. I know you're frustrated. I know you're upset, but just start here. Let's start by understanding what your monthly expenses, and let's find out how can we just start to put some of the things on automatic to over time we can start to build that.
Thank you. And you're an incredible storyteller. So, let me ask this. This goes into what you just mentioned and what Danita mentioned. What role do your friends, your family, your close contacts play in whether or not you're building assets or losing assets? You mentioned having friends that you were writing checks and handing money out to. Danita, you mentioned on the flip side that you had folks that you were able to ask that had assets that you were able to ask about their good money habits. And so what role does your circle play in how you're achieving or not achieving those goals? And that's for anybody.
Oh,
Yeah.
I'm gonna jump in, I'm sorry. I've managed a few athletes, and I must say that the family members were the ones that I actually was managing, because they were actually the ones that were more interested in spending my client's money versus him actually performing. And I used to always remind them that he only has a short period of time of which he's going to earn this type of money. And you guys need to kind of be cognizant of that, because he's not going to be able to provide for you forever. And if he is, he's not going to be able to provide for himself. So a lot of times family and friends definitely can be something that you have to navigate. Sometimes you got to give that arm, and you just got to be able to say no. And you got to really understand that at the end of the day, you know, you got to have your house in order, or you can't take care of anybody else's house.
That's incredible advice. Thanks, Terrence.
Yeah, as far as friends go, friends and who you surround yourself is very important, especially when it comes to finances. And I'm sure you all have heard the term, your network is your net worth. And that is very, very true. And I'm learning that more and more every day. And so I remember story time. So there was one time where I went on vacation with a whole bunch of my friends. And at the end of the vacation, we were tallying up all of our expenses, and it came out to like, I don't know, maybe $30,000. And it was, you know, we had a nice vacation, we had a lot of fun, but at the end of the day, we were like, we could have taken this $30,000, all gone in on a business, generated assets that we could have then used that to pay all of the further vacations that we would have gone on. And it was at that moment that we started to kind of have more delayed gratification and say, okay, let's put off this trip. We want to do this. Let's put this off, and let's combine and leverage our assets to buy and purchase other assets that will make more money for us. And so I think it's very important to surround yourself and build your network full of people who understand these concepts. If you don't understand, like, seek out and put yourself in an area where these people are, so you can build these relationships with people who understand finances more than you do, if that's the case. But yeah, your net worth is equal to your network for sure.
I think that's incredible advice. And I think it can, whether it's going on a vacation or going out to hang with your friends, you know, and going out to a restaurant, you know, if you have friends, if you state a goal and, you know, I'm saving for a house, and every time they want to go out to a bar to get drinks, or go out to a restaurant to eat and pay money, you know, are those folks that are helping you work toward your goals? Or is it, hey, well then let's everybody make something and we'll bring it to somebody's house and we'll eat, we'll watch TV, whatever, we'll go to a park, we'll grill, we'll figure out something to do where we can still have fun, but you're still working toward your goals. And I think whether that's small or big, those is not only your habits, but the habits of your friends and the people around you that is gonna turn out whether you're successful at that or not.
I would just add what you said about family. A lot in the Black community, there's a lot of fear around money, and generations before us have a lot of fear about money and trusting different people with our funds in different ways. And we can't continue to live in that fear, because it continues to hinder us from growing wealth. And so just being able to actually be open to something else, doing research on something else. Maybe your parents may not think it's the best thing, and I'm not saying you always go against them, but there's a wealth of knowledge that maybe that generation or the generation before did not have from a financial standpoint that could really help you continue to progress. So don't live in fear of that. And sometimes you do have to go a little bit against the grain, and you know, you got to feed that knowledge back to your family in a different way.
Thank you for that. And I'm going to trust that whoever our event manager, thank you, event managers are going to keep me on time. I'm going to ask a final question before we go to our question and answer. What was one of the most meaningful decisions you made that impacted your financial outcomes? We all started at one point and are clearly someplace else. So what was one of the decisions that helped change those outcomes for you?
You said decisions or advice?
Either. Decisions you made because of advice. That works too.
Listen to success leaves clues. That was one of the best pieces of advice. When you think about it, from, you know, growing up, I knew I wanted to play professional football, and I studied every running back: Walter Payton, Tony Dorsett, Earl Campbell, Jim Brown. I knew every running back. I knew their workout habits. I knew what they ate. I knew everything about them. And so I did that. If I found out Walter Payton ran hills, guess what I did? I ran hills. I found out Emmitt Smith took ballet. Guess what I did when I got to college? I took a ballet class because I followed in their footsteps and I did it over time. But I never applied that to this area of my life. To follow somebody, to find individuals, to read, we study more about a shampoo that we're about to buy and read all the labels and the reviews than we do about where we should put our money in our future, right? And there's so much information. And so the best advice I received was success leaves clues. Find people, individuals, read who've had success. What did they do? Listen to them if you can talk to them. If you can't, replicate what they did, right? That was some of the best advice.
I think one of the best things I was told is that if you've never failed, you've never succeeded. So what that really means is everyone's going to make mistakes financially, personal, but you have to be able to overcome any mistake that you make. And that's all about your mental makeup. That's about being strong mentally and understand that something that happens to you today that may seem bad can be good tomorrow, and something happens to you today good may be bad for you in the future. So just understanding that, mentally things are what they are, but you always have the ability to change them no matter what the circumstances are at the time.
Thank you. Terrence?
Take risks. And what I mean by that is take calculated risks. So if you have the opportunity to step outside of your comfort zone, that's a great thing. And that's showing you that you're growing, in that aspect. So you're young, you'll be able to recover from anything that seems drastic at this point. So take those risks early so that way you can be in a good place tomorrow.
I think for me, it's, you don't have to make a lot of money to start your financial journey. Sports does not pay a lot in the beginning, trust me. You really have to work for each level that you get. And so with that, I didn't make a lot of money, but I created the good habits. So even then, getting a financial advisor was one of the best things I ever did. And it was at a point where I wasn't making a lot of money and I was just taking the little bit that I had and stashing some there and living off of what I could. So just know that you don't have to have it all. Right? We don't have to hit this certain threshold to put all these people around us to do all these other things. You can start today in some format and get the right group around you for long-term success.
Thank you for that. I know that, when I got that credit card statement in the mail, my mother sat me down and she said, Monica, you have to live like no one has the discipline to live today so that you can live like nobody has the ability to afford tomorrow. And so that point is that you may need to take your lunch, make your sandwiches, sit this one out when your friends ask you to go out and live like nobody wants to live today and take those short-term hits, but for the long-term benefit. And I really appreciated that advice because it switched me from being able to look short-term to looking to see what my long-term future, what I wanted it to look like. So thank you guys for that discussion. And we could have kept going on had Dewey not told me what time it was. So I appreciate that. And hopefully the audience online and in person has appreciated that as well. I want to take the time to ask if the audience has any questions. I know that Dewey will be checking online for online questions as well. So we'll start with the audience. And if there is a question, if you can come down to one of the microphones in the front. If you have a mask on, if you don't mind taking it off so we can hear you clearly. And then if you will just state your first name. I assume that you're all from Bowie, but you might not be. So if you state your first name, the school, and your major, and then go ahead and ask your question. And we will start with you. Are the mic's on? If it's not, you can, let's see if the mic is on or not.
And Monica, we also, and panelists, amazing information. Thank you all so much for everything that you shared there. Don't forget, we have another special guest from Our Money Matters that we want to bring out at some point too. So maybe after we take a couple of questions, we'll
Yeah,
bring out that special guest.
absolutely.
Okay,
Absolutely.
perfect.
All right, well, we'll start on this side. If that, it looks like the audience mics might not be on, so you have one, okay, great. So,
how you doing? Good afternoon, good evening. My name is Marcus Lane. I'm from Brooklyn, New York. I am a senior here at Bowie State University. I'm a finance major. I come to you guys as a businessman. I'm not a student. I come to you guys as a businessman. I have a lot of things going on that I want to start up, even with my boy E back there with real estate. So I have a question. With the stock market crashing recently, real estate inflation has been up 7%. What advice do you guys have for us, like stock investments and crypto investments, NFT, the metaverse is popping right now? What advice do you guys have for us? Do we get in it right now or?
well, great. Well, first of all, before I let you answer that one, because Terrence, like, I got this one. I do just want to make the disclaimer that no one is up here giving financial advice. I don't want y'all coming back and suing anybody on this stage. So we are not giving financial advice, but just, high level, generally speaking, to answer your question, we absolutely can do that.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to say, for not financial advice at all. But so a couple things. One, to address the first part of your question, which was about inflation and everything like that. So I always say keep a rainy day fund, right? You always want to have a little bit of cash on hand. So when these types of things happen, cash is king, right? You always hear cash is king. I'm sure any of these panelists who are in real estate will tell you that you have cash and you can leverage that in a market that where you have the advantage, like leverage that advantage. As far as crypto is concerned, I could talk about this for days, but yes, like I would say learn about it, get into it. I always tell people, if you want to learn about crypto, treat it like you treat whatever your interest is. So if you're interested in sports, treat it like sports, right?
Okay.
Beyond, like if you're in sports, you watch First Take, you watch Skip and Shannon, you watch SportsCenter, you're involved in it. Do the same thing with crypto or with any industry that you want to invest in. But yeah, you're not too late, right? We're still very early in it. So I would say, yeah, definitely learn, definitely involve yourself in that.
Do you have any cryptos that you know that are? You can't say, all right, no problem. Thank you though, thank you.
Absolutely. Did we get the mic on the other end working? Okay, great, go ahead.
Hello, Texas. Okay. Hello, everybody. My name is Josiah Weeks. I'm a junior business administration major for management concentration from Miami, Florida, but here in Baltimore County, going to Bowie State University. My question is, I'm a junior now, but I'll be graduating next year, 2023 spring. And my question is that I'm sure a lot of my other concur with is that out of college, that first, 6 to 12 months after college, what are some financial tips for moving out, for being ready to be an adult, and then handling, college debt and et cetera?
Right. Who wants to take that?
Some financial tips are try to save as much as possible. As Tim said to you guys early, really monitor what you have going out, meaning if you want to buy Starbucks coffee, you want to buy Panera Bread for lunch, and you want to buy Chick-fil-A for dinner every day, that adds up at the end of the week. The mistake that I made of trying to buy a new car, I don't think I would rush out to buy a new car. I would really buy the house first. And don't think that that's not impossible, because it really is possible for you to do right after you graduate, depending on what your financial situation is now and if you're working now. But even the first few years after college, if you've built your credit, started to establish some credit early on, which is what you should be doing, using it wisely though, not just getting a credit card just to go shopping, but for the purpose of, getting something that has rewards, charging what you're going to buy, pay off at the end of the month. But most importantly, sacrifice. You know, in my early 20s, when I graduated, most of my friends were partying, they were buying designer, you know, they were having a lot of fun. I wasn't partying. I was working 9-, 10-hour days. I wasn't taking vacations. I didn't buy anything designer. I sacrificed a lot of fun in my 20s to get where I wanted to be in my 30s, I'll say. So I'm just gonna, you know, besides the word habit that we've said, I'd say sacrifice is almost more important to get to where you need to get to.
Anita, did you have?
I was just gonna say that transition from college to like the quote unquote real world of it all is one where you feel like you have to be an adult immediately and just realize it takes time. Like you're not gonna know everything. You don't need the best apartment. Roommates are always good because it reduces costs. So if you still gotta have a roommate, nobody's mad at you, do it, right? So like there's things like that that are simple that sometimes we just feel like, man, we've worked all this time. We got through high school, we got through college. It's our turn to live our life. I'm telling you, it gets better as you get older. So like just really like hone in on the skills and the practices now, because when you get older, it's way more fun. It really is. Because then you have the funds to actually do what you want to do because you took the time now, and then you have way more less limitation at that point.
And I just want to add one more thing. You know, based on where you are as a junior, I think working on your credit now is really important, and monitoring it. Making sure that you're working to take the steps that you need to increase your credit score. I did that around my junior year. I was able to buy my first house when I was 20 years old. And so to be able to become a homeowner at that time, you know, has allowed me over the years to build equity. And with that equity, you can do all kinds of things. But also I was able to I still live in the house that I bought when I was 20 years old. I'm in a very different income bracket than I was when I was 20, but that house still works for me. And so, you know, not only living within your means, but identify what it takes to make you feel content, I think is really important, and not, you know, trying to keep up with the Joneses or compare yourself with other people, but what keeps you content. Now I have 9 more years on my mortgage, right? And so, you know, at a much earlier age than some other folks, I'm going to be at a much different financially secure space than somebody else would be. But it was because of those early steps when I was in college.
So Monica, you get a lot of love with with buying the house at 20 years old. A lot of love here from the online partners. And we do have some online questions that have come in, but we did promise you all a little bit earlier that we had an additional special guest that we're going to bring on. And so would love to invite to the stage here Miss Sharon Kent. She is with Our Money Matters, and she actually serves as the program director. So if you all would, let's welcome Sharon to the stage for a moment.
Thank you. It is a privilege and a pleasure to be here. Move this down a little bit. You're a tall guy, I'm a short gal. Anyway, as he said, I'm Sharon Kent, and I am the program director of Our Money Matters. Our Money Matters is an initiative of the HBCU Community Development Action Coalition. And we are funded by Wells Fargo, this initiative, Our Money Matters. So what is Our Money Matters other than it really is? Our Money Matters is important, right? And so Our Money Matters is a free online financial literacy platform that's geared toward HBCU campuses, students, minority serving institutions, community and faith-based organizations that surround our HBCU campuses across the country. And I have the unique privilege of managing that whole program, working with an amazing team of coordinators and liaisons and recruiters. And so why this is important, I pulled up a couple of statistics that I wanted to share with this audience, because did you realize that 4 years after graduation, 48% of Black students owe an average of 12.5% more than what they borrowed? And after that same period, 83% of white students owe 12% less than they borrowed. That's why this is important. Another statistic that I'd like to share with you is the fact that Black women owe more in student debt than white women and Black men. So Our Money Matters, having the financial literacy platform where our students can learn how to manage their money, how to budget and how to save and how to prepare themselves to become an entrepreneur, a homeowner. All of those resources and tools are available on our platform, Our Money Matters. And I tell people all the time that Our Money Matters is probably the most important thing that an individual can take advantage of at this stage in your life before you're going out and you're adulting. Take advantage of it now. Learn how to manage your budget, your money now. Learn how to set a budget. Learn how to prepare yourself to be a good banking customer. Being able to prepare yourself to become a homeowner at 20 years old. I didn't miss that. And prepare yourself to become an entrepreneur, start your own business. In the Black community, we spend $1.3 trillion a year. $1.3 trillion that we're spending making other people rich. And all of those designer clothes, every last one of those designers, that's the last name that you're buying. So you're paying for somebody else's wealth, you're paying for somebody else's wealth building that they can give to their families, but we're doing it, unfortunately, at the expense of our own family. And so we have to change the dynamic. We have to change the trajectory of our own financial health as a community. And that's why Our Money Matters is so important. And so, like I said, I'm privileged and thrilled and delighted to be here with you all. And thank you for this opportunity. All right.
What was that number? $1.7 trillion? 1.3 trillion in every year, annually, for our spend. I think we have to be very judicious about where we spend and where we invest. So, all right. A couple of questions have come in. This one was pretty interesting. There's a question around salary negotiations, and not quite in scope for us, but I thought it was an interesting question. Can you all talk and unpack any of the suggestions around how to negotiate salaries and how to come out on top? Please, panelists.
I think one of the first things is to understand what the market is, right? You need to be as informed as you can on what is the going rate for somebody with your level of experience, the title, the role, the position, et cetera, et cetera. Once you understand that, then you know you can either go up or down, or you always want to go up, but you can go up, based off of some other factors. So let's say that you really nail the interview. Let's say you feel really good, you really knocked it out of the park, you get those good warm and fuzzies leaving, they like you, they hit you back. That you can use that to leverage. You can also leverage other offers. So if you have other offers on the table, you can have those two companies competing against each other, or three or four, whatever. You just want to be able to have as much firepower as you can. So being informed, leveraging other offers, and using your current salary as also another place. So going back to your current employer and saying, hey, these are the offers that I have on the table. Maybe they're willing to match it or go above. So those are some other areas for. Those are what I would say. Yeah.
Thank you for that. I think I would just add that, it's really important to negotiate your salary going into a position. You are never going to get as much of an increase while you're there as you will when they offer it to you. So, those salary increases once you're in a position are going to be incremental. The biggest jump that you're probably going to get is when you're accepting the position. There are websites like PayScale and others that are HR connected where you can pull up comparative salaries, industries, and understand what people are being paid, what people are paid in the geography that you're in. Now that we're in a remote workspace, you may be able to negotiate a salary based on, a whole host of other things. And then also recognizing that salary negotiation also includes other aspects like the ability to work remotely, profit sharing or 401k contributions. There are other financial benefits in addition to salary that you do want to make sure that you're negotiating as well. And then one of the other suggestions is to, is to give yourself a script. Because it can be a difficult conversation. It can feel very intimidating when you're doing that. So, bullet point out your accomplishments, bullet point out, your degrees, what you've done, your network, successful initiatives that you've been able to take advantage of or bring to a previous or current employer, and keep a record of those things so that when it does come time for your bonuses, salary negotiations, or increases, that you're able to pull from those and back up while you're asking for more money.
If I can add one thing, I got a story. I'm consistent. I got a story. But you can have. I was given this advice one time. You can have whatever it is. You can have whatever you want if you understand what someone else wants and you know how to get them what they want. And I think early on, I was of the mindset that I'm going to figure out a way to get what I want, right? And you're going to bully someone into getting what you want. Instead of taking the time to understand, what does this individual sitting across the table from me, what do they want? If I spend as much time understanding the market, understanding the industry, but then I also do the research to know if I was in this individual's position, what would get me to say yes? Coming into it with that mindset. So my last year in New Orleans, unfortunately, my agent passed right before it was time for my contract. And I bullet pointed things out, and I sought some mentorship and some guidance on how I should approach the situation. But I'm nervous. I'm outside his office. I'm shaking. I'm nervous. I'm taking out my little notes in my pocket and I'm going over it, right? And this is my first time doing this for myself, negotiating for myself. And I'm going back and forth with the GM there. And the thing that really broke the ice was I asked him a question. What would make this investment worthwhile for you? Like, what would make this a year from now? I wanted incentives. I wanted an increased bonus and incentives. I said, what would success look like a year from now? If I did X, what would that be? Just asked him the question. He told me. I said, well, put it in a bonus and an incentive. And he did. So instead of, it was that simple, to the fact where instead of me coming and saying, this is what I want, and having the chance of him pushing back, I found out what it is, what was success, and I built that into there. So that's what I would say as far as negotiation.
Awesome advice.
So I'm going to give one more here for our online audience, and for our students that are joining us here at Bowie State. Please, now's the time to make your way back to the microphones, because we're going to continue to take questions. Real easy one. Folks online are interested in knowing what you all are reading right now. Anything that especially jumps out to you all. And then Monica, we'll let you take it the rest of the way.
If you want me to start. So I have a book called Nickel and Dime Your Way to Wealth, which is about a person who she never made more than like minimum wage, but was able to build wealth through some of her habits that was able to make. And so, that's one of the ones, just because I'm trying to work with my children to make sure that they're building their own good habits, and have done that with them for a long time, and making sure that they're building good personal habits for themselves. So that's what I'm reading right now. There's one non-financial one. It's called Flowers of the Children of the Flower Moon, which is about Native Americans who were sitting on land that had oil under it. And the US government tried to figure out ways to take that land from them, because they didn't realize that they had resettled them on land that had so much assets under it, which is an incredible story. Anybody reading? Y'all read? Y'all got books?
I'm actually reading a book called Tusaka. It's about it was an African slave who was captured by Portugal, and he was also passed around. He wound up being sold to some Chinese imperialists, and he became a samurai. And he actually became one of the most powerful samurai at that time, and was leading a lot of their armies, doing a lot of feudal affairs, and actually helping them to navigate in, the terrains of Africa and conquer a lot of different enemies, I should say.
Great, thank you. All right, we got a couple. Let's see if we can take these couple quick questions. We'll start with you.
Okay. Well, hello, my name is Justin Thomas. I am a graduating senior. My major is in advertising design. And my question is in the similarity of reading books, but I wanted to know, are there any podcasts that you are listening to that you can recommend to myself and to the crowd?
Anybody listen to podcasts?
None of the worthwhile.
There's a good one called Negotiate Anything. We talk about negotiation. And it's 20 minutes or less, right? It's the idea was the average commute time is 20 to 25 minutes. And so they made the podcast where an individual can listen to it on their way home from work. And I listen to it every single day because he interviews executives, he interviews just individuals, and they're giving real life tips and experiences on, whether it's presentations, making the presentation, like whether it's vocabulary, PowerPoints, actual tactics. And so I would say Negotiate Anything. And it's very practical. There are a ton of takeaways that I've started to implement already. And that's a real good one.
Thank you.
I was gonna say, I listen to like the Wharton School of Business. They do some, and then they have like a sports one specifically about sports business. So that's when I'm in the car. That's typically one of the ones I do enjoy.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Hello, my name is Erica Harrell. I do attend Bowie State, and my major is right now music performance, but I'm changing it to music technology. But my question is, if at all, how have you all been able to leverage your relationship with your bank and banking relationships to improve your financial wellness or to improve your financial being?
Can I talk about other banks? Can I do that? I do that a lot. I have 3 different banks that I work with on the stuff that I do. Wells Fargo is one of them. I have Bank of America, and then I have like a credit union, and I balance between the 3. And so like one of the things that I've done recently too, I don't know if I don't want to give like pure financial advice, but tell me if I go too far on this. But one of the things that I did is some of my credit cards have higher interest than others, right? So then like when I look at like my credit union stuff, it has lower interest rates. So I'll take and use my credit cards for points and then flip everything over to my lower interest one and pay it off there. So it's just like a trick of the trade, like little things like that that I use and leverage between my banks. And I actually did that to a friend of mine who works at a bank who was like, hey, you should probably do this. It might help you out as you're going through this phase. But I leverage those when I have other financial needs that come up, talking to my bank. And really, it goes back to my financial advisor a lot too, not just the bank itself. It's my financial advisor that kind of plays a key role in how I navigate between those worlds.
That was great. That was perfect. That was perfect. I know you have an answer.
So definitely your credit is one of the most important things you're going to be able to leverage. And when I was talking about, not using those credit cards for unnecessary purchases. So as you grow and you start to earn more and you have a relationship with your bank and you have more on deposit, you start applying for credit cards and you get a bigger line of credit at some point. Well, a credit card can be something you can leverage, to start a business. It's more than just spending it or using it for rental cars. So keeping your credit in order and making sure that the bank is giving you something, besides just holding on to your money, because you're not going to earn any money in your checking account. So the credit part of leveraging your credit and using whatever credit cards you have for meaningful purchases or starting a business or something like that, I think is something that people underestimate.
I would just add, I know when I did get my first car loan, I heard that if you go to a car dealership, they may run your credit with multiple places. And so instead of doing that, I went straight to the credit union that I had at the time and got the loan through them. And I was able to get a much lower interest rate. I was able to have a conversation with the person, and, and being young then, it helped me not only get something that I could afford, but also help me understand exactly what I was getting into. And so, you may want to talk to your financial institution about the products and services that they have available to you. Let them know your goals. That's what they're there for. You let them know your goals. They should be able to serve as sort of, coaches along the way to be able to give you advice. Well, if you're trying to start, your credit report and you don't qualify for an unsecured credit card now, we have a secured credit card that we can offer you. Next time you get your student loan refund, tax refund, or whatever, put $250, $500 aside, open the secured credit card, and now you have a secured line of credit that you can start building your credit score with. That may be advice that a bank or financial institution is able to give you, but letting them know your goals so that they can start to help you meet those goals is important. That was an excellent question.
Thank you. Have a good one.
All right, we have one more audience question.
Hi guys, my name is Tolu Reagan. I'm a business marketing major at Bowie State. Mr. Terrence, you spoke on how when you and your friends went to Hawaii, you guys spent the $30,000 and then started thinking about the investments you guys could have made. If you can you speak on some of those investments you guys did make or thought about making? And I know you guys can't go into specific, but if you can just touch on it a little bit. And this is for all you guys to answer as well, not just you.
Yeah, so I won't go into specifics, but I'll say leverage. You've heard the word leverage up here a lot, and because it's the force multiplier that can get you, access to things that you would be otherwise unable to obtain. So leverage the talent in your friends group. What are you all good at? If you have lawyers, if you have doctors, potential doctors, whoever is in your friends group, leverage those talents and figure out what it is based off of that talent. What business would you be able to do? Would you be able to start a marketing business or start whatever business, whatever the case is? That's what you want to be. So everything is individualized to your group. That's what I would say to that.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right, I think it looks like I thought that was the last question, but I see that you're prepared and your question's all written out on your phone, so
Yes.
you gotta ask it. Go ahead.
Yes, ma'am. My name is Madison Hall, first and foremost. I'm a music technology major and a junior. I don't know when I'll be graduating, but hopefully next semester. Oh, I have a psychology
Get a little bit
minor.
closer to the mic for me.
Good?
Yep.
Yeah. My name is Madison Hall. I'm a junior at Bowie State University. I'm a music tech major and a psychology minor. Hopefully I'm graduating next semester, but I mean, not next semester, but next year. Might need an extra semester for the minor. But my question is, for entrepreneurs starting a business, would you recommend using a credit card for startup costs or working with another company in their field in order to get that credit or the funding? Yeah.
So if I understand your question, it's information around startup funding for entrepreneurs, basically, and how to best secure that. Okay, great. Anybody? Yeah, I mean, we have a co-founder up here, so.
Yeah, so I will say, as much as you can, use other people's money. No, always, right? Whether you're buying a home, whether you're building a business, you always want to put the risk put the risk on other people and leverage their money so that you can go off and then, make your money. So when it comes to, but at the same time, you know, when you're hustling, you got to do what you got to do. So if that means that you're going to be building part of your business off of your credit card, whatever makes sense, right? But as much as you can, pitch your business to as many people as you can, and see, there's tons of money out there. There's tons of money out there in the VC world and banks, going to banks. There's so much money out there to be had. It's, are you going to be proactive enough to go and find it? And that's really the one thing that I don't see a lot of people being proactive in researching that. Being like getting somebody calling somebody on the phone, you know, meeting somebody, going on LinkedIn, hitting people up, going to shows, conferences, things like that. Wherever you can find the money, it's there.
Great, I appreciate that. Thank you. So I want to look at our host and see where we are with time. With one more? All right. Yes, sir.
Hey, how you guys doing? My name is Prosper. I'm a senior here at Bowie State. And my question is, so there's this famous quote, or my favorite quote, that says, the poor stay poor because they spend most of their money. The middle class stay in the middle class because they save most of their money, and the rich stay rich because they invest most of your money. So I was just wondering, what are your thoughts on that quote real quick? And pretty much it.
Oh, let me jump in there. There are a ton of layers, you know, to that quote, and that's, while I do think there's some truth in that. We all start at different places in life. And let me just first start off by applauding all of you. You could be anywhere. You're investing right now. Yeah. You're investing your time. You're investing your time, which is the greatest asset that you all have. Your time and your person, like your ability, who you are, your capacity to learn more, to earn more, to do more, to be more. And so, you know, kudos to all of you. But to that quote, again, we all start at different places. And as we know, I think what has come out of this pandemic that we're in and hopefully getting through is showing the disparities and showing the impact, the barriers in, to access to, whether it's investments, whether it's education, opportunities. So again, I don't particularly agree with that quote, I understand, but just because you start there doesn't mean you have to stay there. One of the things that I share with my son, it's okay to not know, but it's not okay to stay in the unknown, right? And so having that understanding of where am I, if I'm poor, if I'm middle, if I'm wealthy, it doesn't matter where I am. What I do with where I am is what matters, and the habits that I form, the information that I make myself available to, the decisions that I make now will determine where I go in the next year, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 years. So I think that's hopefully if I could put a button on that.
Yeah, I understood it.
That's what I would respond to that.
Thank you for your time.
All right, some great information. Let's salute our panelists again. And a wonderful moderator and panelists. Is it all right for folks to reach out to you on LinkedIn, social media to kind of get engaged? Okay, are you gonna stay around for autographs and selfies after the show too? All right, you may have to wear your mask to do all that, but we'll move forward. Hey, listen, we promised another special announcement. I'm gonna bring Betsy back up here, and then we'll give you guys some closing items and get everyone on to the rest of your night. Betsy, please, come on.
Thank you very much. So we said when you were coming here that we were going to have prizes. So how do you feel about 10 $1,000 awards? Now, to be fair, it's for folks that registered, that are here, and that are also on Zoom. So I'm going to say the names. And if your name is called and you're here, please stay after. If your name is called and you're not here, but you're listening, we'll be reaching out to you to get all the necessary information. So you guys ready? All right. Well, one other thing I wanted to say before we got that. Okay, well, I really do want to say one thing. So I was first generation corporate, and I didn't know anything. I went to go work for a bank, didn't know anything about banking, didn't know anything about money. And the human resources department sat me down on my first day on the job and said, this is a thing called a 401k, invest in it. And I was like, okay, I mean, all right, that's what you're telling me to do. And I'm a rule follower, and so I did. And I retired at 51 because I was able to not touch that money. So please, when we talked about saving, we talked about doing everything you can. I made like $15,000 my first job out of college, and that's what we saved from. So it doesn't matter how much you make. If you put it away before you see it, it won't matter. Okay, now you ready? All right, see, I had to make you listen to that to get to the good part. Okay, so the 10 winners in no particular order, and these were randomly selected using a generator, so I didn't have anything to do with this. So you can't get mad at me, or except for you can love me if you win.